Ms. Kenny, could you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear and affirm the information and testimony you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, Your Honor.
You can put your hand down. And how is it you need an order against Ms. Jones?
Good morning, Your Honor. I am here today to seek relief from someone who I cannot fully remove from my life, my partner's ex-girlfriend and mother to two of his children, Shanna Jones. I have read the objections to her order, and I want to make clear that I am here today for one reason. Since entering this relationship over 2 years ago, I have been the victim of harassment and threats that recently escalated into physical intimidation and contact that for the first time made me feel unsafe and scared. Shanna has openly despised my presence since 2022. She has a long documented history of harassing me via social media messengers. It was very common for her to send ranting, vile, and hateful messages to me that I would not respond to. My partner Ethan and Shanna co-parent 2 children. I have been active in their lives, and Shanna makes it clear that I am not welcome. She frequently reminds me that, and I quote, "I will never be their mother," and doesn't seem to understand I have no desire to replace or remove her from their lives. The online harassment and messaging have decreased since 2022. Shanna has remained hostile when we are both attending family events. She often yells comments indirectly like F and B, stupid B, or questions loudly to others why I'm even there. These comments are clearly directed towards me. When we are interacting with the kids, she will often position herself in a manner to box me out, and she cannot pass any opportunity to express her anger. For example, I recently tried to hand Jameson his football helmet he forgot to take with him, and Shanna forcefully yanked it from my hands. The kids participate in football and cheerleading programs that I was active in until Shanna demanded that I not be communicated with, citing that I am not their mother. This was not an issue that she raised with me, but since this time, I have only attended cheer on the weekends that the kids are scheduled to stay with us. Friday, September 20th, which was Ethan's court-awarded time, Shanna was joined by her family at the game. Her family treats me with the same hostility, but this time was different. On this night, Shanna's mom, Stacia Jones, gave Jameson a hug to say goodbye. As she stood up and walked past me, she shoulder-checked me. She was unapologetic and glared at me while Shanna said goodbye to Jameson. As I went to leave, Shanna objected to me taking Jameson with me to meet Ethan, even though he was a short distance away. Shanna's Aunt Samantha yelled, "You're not their mom, you dumb bee," and the group began to berate me. I was shocked that they were preventing me from leaving and intent on instigating some kind of problem. Ethan was in earshot of this unfolding and appeared through the crowd. We began to make an exit, but the 3 women took turns screaming insults as we moved away. It was audible for more than a minute as we moved rapidly. I was afraid that the group was committed to furthering this problem and convinced that they were following it. I passed an officer from the Lacey Police Department and I asked her for help. I believe that I am unsafe and in need of protection because this family has demonstrated that they are impulsive and unable to control their worst behaviors. They all said that they want to protect the kids, but each of them took turns riling each other up, and not one of them chose to be the voice of reason or calm. Their actions have shown that this matter is territorial, and I am convinced more than ever they will amplify their hostility until they achieve their intended goal of pushing me away. I received Shanna's filings on Friday. I have reviewed the screenshots Shanna and her brother Tim exchanged with someone named Nicole Jackson. I am not impersonating this person, and I don't know who this person is. It is clear that their family is convinced they are messages from me or Ethan. In these screenshots, threats are made. There are sections that are removed from their submissions of these messages, and I feel increasingly unsafe after reading them. Ethan's truck was vandalized last week in front of our home, and it now feels less coincidental. After speaking to Officer Howard that night, I realized this is how her family operates, and it will never get better. I fear I will always be the focus of intimidating acts and aggression if nothing is done. That is the only reason why I am here today, to seek relief.
Ms. Stanton, do you have any questions you wish to ask Ms. Kenny?
No. I would like to just do a closing argument when the court's ready.
Okay. Do you wish to have your client testify? I mean, there's things in the file, but
We'll stand on the statement that she provided and the witness statements.
Just a minute. So in reading the file, does Ms. Does, does Ms. Jones have an order against the father of her children? An anti-harassment order of some kind?
Restraining order.
Yeah, but it's a no contact order,
It's a
anti-harassment
do not
order.
disturb order.
Ms. Kenny,
Credible
Ms. Kenny, I can only talk to one person at a time. And if two people are talking at me, I can't understand either one. Okay, so I'll give you a chance to respond, but I'm speaking with Ms. Stanton right now, and I'll come back and talk to you in a minute. But yeah, go ahead, Ms. Stanton.
Yes, there was a restraining order that was entered in the family law case that has a do not disturb, and it also required him to forfeit all of his firearms because of concerns and issues that he had.
I see, but I mean, is it no contact? Like, don't come within X amount of feet of?
No, they only gave a do not disturb the peace. But I believe that what's been happening has been disturbing the peace, and that's why I provided it.
Got it. So Ms. Kenny, I will come, you wanted to say something?
I was just going to say it's do not disturb the peace. A credible threat was not checked on the order, and the weapons surrender is only temporary, pending evaluations that have been completed, and temporary orders, they're not fact.
What's the parenting plan say? And I'm asking you, Ms. Kenny, is there a parenting plan in place, and
there's temporary orders. Ethan has Jameson and Cosette every other Thursday to Monday. They go back, I believe, just the middle of December for final orders.
I see. All right, so Ms. Stanton, so what's going to happen now there, Ms. Kenny, is I'm going to hear from Ms. Stanton. She's resting on the declarations and document, which I've read. And I'm going to hear from her, then I'll give you the final word here. All right. Ms. Stanton, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor. I do want to object to her witness statements because they're clearly people who do not have direct knowledge. Ms. Jones is the custodial parent of two children, ages 7 and 8, and she had a legitimate reason to want to participate in and to watch her children at the events that she registered them for and she paid for. And she would not do anything that would jeopardize her status as primary parent. Ms. Kinney is the live-in girlfriend of the children's father. After separation, he was getting every other weekend. And Miss Jones finally, after 2 years, asked for child support. And that's when things changed. And Miss Kinney and Ethan were both cornering her, taking the children from her at events, and bullying and threatening her. Miss Kinney at one point was saying, "I bet you won't say anything to my face," at an exchange. She was intimidated and afraid, but she was told by the police that she needed to not make a scene, and you can't just have arm wrestling over the children. So she allowed the children to go over her objection, and she went to court because the police told her to get a parenting plan in place. She also received the restraining order that included the surrender of firearms. She denies all of the allegations. She would never speak the way that they have said that. Those are not her words. And she would never ask third parties to reach out on media. Miss Jones is the one that signed them up for the football and the cheer. And the father decided to sign up as a line coach on the side. He had no prior history of volunteering. I'm assuming it was for show for the family law case. Ms. Kinney decided that she would attend all the practices and games so that there was always an opportunity to harass Miss Jones. Ms. Jones blocked her on social media 2 years ago and intentionally goes out of her way to not have contact with her. The messages are old. They were at a period of time when Ethan was going back and forth between these two women, and it was causing some antagonizing, manipulating, and disrespect. And my client was not perfect. She did apologize, but Ms. Kinney also apologized. We attached both of those so the court could see that they were both apologizing for their behavior. At the children's games, Ms. Jones will only say things like, can I please have my personal space, or could I please be left alone? But she's always very respectful to her because she's doing this in front of the kids. She doesn't want the kids to see any ugliness. And she wants to stay respectful, hoping that that will be passed back toward her as well. Ms. Kinney will usually say things like, I don't have to, and go get Ethan and start fighting with her. Ms. Kinney was removed from the cheer coach group because of the hostilities between them. And she also took her daughter's cheer uniform. This is something my client paid for, but she felt the need to take it and to not provide it over to the daughter. Miss Kinney has yelled at her in front of the children on multiple occasions, saying things like, grow up. They both will gang up on her. It comes this bullying aspect where 2-on-1 against her. She has a legitimate right to be present at these children's events. Miss Kinney has no children there. Miss Jones does talk to her children at the events, which she should have a right to discuss, say hello, say goodbye, tell them that she's proud of them. Those are reasonable things that normal parents will do. Last year, Miss Kinney got in her face when her son was crying. It was at the exchange. The son did not want to go. Miss Jones was trying to console him, and Miss Kinney was there in her face trying to take the child. It didn't need to go this way. This is just how Miss Kinney is. Miss Kinney has a long pattern of not respecting her boundaries. Miss Jones reached out to her attorney about the harassment in August on 2 different occasions, and to the guardian ad litem in the family law case on 9/18, which we did provide that to the court. Also on 9/20, she called the police as well because she truly believed that what was occurring was a violation of the court order because it was disturbing her peace. All of the witnesses that came on 9/20 all corroborate what my client is saying, that this did not go down this way. The maternal grandfather, Tim Jones, attends nearly every practice and game. He was present on 9/14 and 9/20. He witnessed her give a hug and a kiss before the game, and there was no stare, clenching fists, cursing, or threats. These are fabrications, and the daughter never said any of these things. The maternal grandmother, Stacia Jones, also was present on 9/20, and she watched Shanna, Sam, and Gracelyn all go over and say hello and give a hug, and Miss Kinney was not spoken to. She also says that she's also very polite, that at the end of the game that she went over to wanting to give the grandson a hug, and she said, excuse me, and that it was Miss Kinney that stepped on the back of her shoe and bumped her, which caused her to lose her balance and almost fall. But she says that she did nothing that was rude, that Miss Jones did nothing that was rude, and that it was her that lost it and started screaming at them. Samantha Bell is the aunt. Samantha Bell also wrote in that she has known Ethan since 2012, and obviously Miss Jones her whole life, that she was there on 9/20, and she confirms that all 3 of them just went there to say hello, that it was approximately 1 minute. There was a hug and a hello and a goodbye. At the event, when they wanted to say goodbye, they wanted to also see the daughter because the daughter had not been present. Only the son had been present in the beginning of the event. And so they went down there to say hello to her, and they saw Jameson. They wanted to tell him what a great job he did. And that's when Miss Kinney started shouting that he was on the field. Didn't you see him? And things started escalating. And then the father came over screaming and angry and dragging the daughter. Go ahead.
If I'm understanding you correctly, everything is Ms. Kenny's fault and Ms. Jones did nothing.
Well, I'm saying that Ethan also, I truly believe that this is done as positioning for Ethan in the future of the family law case, and that it's not based on the truth.
Okay.
It's just like
But
Ethan
again, I mean, your clients, there was no sort of instigation from either your client or her family members, and everything, all the voice raising came from Ms. Kenny. Is that what you're telling me?
and Ethan. as well. Both of them were yelling at my client's family. And the 12-year-old or 11-year-old flipped them off on the way out. So yes, that is our position, that this has been, my client in the family law case described a huge amount of domestic violence that was going on with Ethan. And she believes that this is just more of the same, that Ms. Kinney has joined in on it. That's part of the reason why they are cornering her 2-on-1 to take the children back before the parenting plan action started, was because they were both in on it together to take the kids from her. And so that is my client's position in this. But she also had multiple family members that were also present that all say it did not go down the way she's saying. And she has a legitimate and lawful right to go to her children's games that she paid for and registered the kids for, and to see them at those games. She's denying all of the allegations. There is no knowing and willful course of conduct to harass Ms. Kinney. There is a legitimate and lawful purpose for her to be there to see her kids. And we don't believe that there's any substantial emotional distress alleged or present in this case. Your Honor, there's no reason to order this anti-harassment, and it would be used as a weapon in the family law case if it is ordered, to try to say that she's the bad actor in this case, when the court previously found that Mr. Ethan Martin was the one who was the bad actor and needed the order. And so I believe it is positioning for this upcoming December hearing. And I'm asking the court not to enter it. It wasn't entered on a temporary basis, and it should not be entered now. Thank you.
Ms. Kenny, I do have one question for you, and then I'll let you to respond to what I heard from Ms. Stanton. Ms. Stanton indicated that I saw those apology texts, I guess it'd be the best way to put them, a couple of years ago. And then Ms. Stanton, I think, just told me, and I don't mean to mischaracterize what you said, but if I did, you could tell me, things were okay for a couple of years until Ms. Jones started asking for child support. And then that kind of started things back up again.
No, that apology was made. She cropped out the date on that apology for a reason, and I think she also submitted these pretty late. I received them on Friday, so I wasn't able to submit any documentation to prove a lot of her lies in her declarations. But the apology was made in November of 2022, and the majority of messages that I submitted are from January 30th of 2023. So it was,
which is well over a year ago.
Right, but it was 2 months after she said that she apologized, and in her statement she said she has never veered, and that from that apology,
what happened
those are not her.
For the last year and a half? How have been things?
So the last about a year, we have had Jameson and Cosette 50% of the time. There was no parenting plan put in place. Shanna forced a foreclosure on a home that Ethan refused to give to her, and she refused to sell it. As soon as that happened, she had to move out and start paying her own rent. She took Ethan to court, claiming that he has never had them 50% of the time, and it was only every other weekend. So that's kind of what their parenting plan it'll go through all of those weeds, and hopefully they have a order in December. But last year for Jameson's flag football season, I and Ethan both attended every single practice and game. She did not show up to the majority of those practices. She did attend games, and there was no issue between the two of us. We did not communicate, but we never cornered her. We never took children forcefully from her. Those are all made up. And then I am very respectful. I think that I'm very passive. I let her say goodbye to her kids. I understand that that is their mother. I give them space. But now that there's a do not disturb order in place between her and Ethan, she has made me the target again. Before, she would send Ethan messages, harassing him, even saying terrible things about me to him. And since she can no longer do that, she has made me her target yet again. And now she is including her family. All of her declarations are people that are clearly biased. They're made to make me and Ethan look like terrible people. And that's the same thing that they did in his custody case as well. It's all from the same family, and it's not true. None of her allegations are true. And I also put a public records request to get video footage from that night. They said it could take up to 30 days for me to get it. But I was not even standing directly next to Jameson when they were saying goodbye. Dallas was actually in the middle of us. So the mom intentionally went out of her way to bump into me, and she did it intentionally. She wanted to get a reaction out of me, which she did not get from me. And when I don't react that's when they escalated the situation and we chose to walk away. And I also want to say that Ethan has paid over $30,000 in child support. So this whole thing of him not paying and she pays for everything herself and she does everything herself, it's a lie. It's just to make him seem like a bad person. He coached their baseball this last season. She would not take the kids to baseball on her time, but he did coach that as well. So it didn't just start happening. He has been active in their life, and just our presence showing up is an issue for her.
Right. So here's, give me just a second. I'm ready to rule in the case. As I said before, unlawful harassment is a knowing and willful course of conduct directed at a specific person that seriously alarms, annoys, or harasses. And I've heard, I get this frankly isn't all that uncommon. One side comes in and say, I didn't do anything. This person won't leave me alone. And then the other person comes in to respond, I didn't do anything. It's the other person who's causing all the problems. And so it's, I think you both need to understand, Ms. Jones, I'll speak directly to you, as long as Ms. Kenny and the father of your child are in a relationship, she's not going anywhere. She's going to hang out. And Ms. Stanton said on a number of occasions, Ms. Jones, she has a right to be there. She has a right to be there as mother. And of course you do. But Ms. Kenny doesn't not have a right to be there. She's involved in a relationship. Her significant other has children who participates in these events. She can come and watch them. There's no problem with that. That's actually a good thing, I would think. And the same is true for you, Ms. Kenny. Ms. Jones isn't going anywhere. And I'm not going to find that one person was the cause of all this. It's generally my experience. It kind of takes two to tango, and we're here in court. And I really don't think we would be here if this was all just one way, which is a long way of saying at this time, and somebody's told someone to grow up. And frankly, I think that's good advice for both of you. And so I'm not going to enter an order at this time. Not all conflict rises to the level of harassment. You two don't like each other. There's no question about that. And, it's a lot of what you claim, Ms. Kenny, is, all these family members are doing all this thing. But you know what? You didn't ask for orders against them. And if you have orders against them, you can bring them, but not, getting an order. And so I'm not going to enter an order at this time. It doesn't, just because two people don't like each other and can't get along, doesn't rise to the level of harassment. But it might if it keeps up. And both of you need to understand how you're conducting yourself in front of these children. I don't think a real great show is being put on for them. And when everybody sits and points their finger, it's not my fault, it's her fault. Well, it's not my fault, it's her fault. That's just not a good, you're not putting on a good show for these kids because they're watching and they're learning. And I don't think they're learning a whole lot from what's going on out there, a whole lot of good things for what's going on out there. So at this point, I'm going to deny the petition without prejudice. And again, I don't know if I do, there's some mandatory transfer issues here, and sometimes in family court cases, this might be better brought and litigated in the family law case rather than here, although technically it might not qualify because it doesn't really affect a parenting plan, and jurisdiction hasn't been exercised against these two folks individually. But this seems to me to be wrapped up in the family law case on both sides. And so anyway, that's a long way of saying at this point, I'm denying the motion for an order, or denying the petition for an order. And I think both of you should probably take a good hard look at how you're conducting yourselves out there. And that's, maybe that'll make both of you mad at me. I don't know, but that's the way I'm going to leave it here for today. And you're both, and Ms. Stanton, you're all free to leave the Zoom call. You can get a copy of the denial order off the Thurston County District Court website.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Have a good day.
You're welcome.